Good evening, and welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Mia Marquez. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, we take a look back at stories from our education team, from issues with school budgets to dealing with teacher shortages.
School and law enforcement officials gathered in Phoenix today to talk about the growing concerns of violence on school campuses. On the last day of this summit, there was a lot of talk about how to ease the concerns about safety in schools. Dozens of officials from across the country gathered for the last day of the School Safety, Security, and Trauma-Informed Practices National Summit at Grand Canyon University. Among them, Maricopa County Sheriff Paul Penzone, who spoke about the growing concerns of students feeling unsafe at school.
Now suddenly we're faced with this threat of safety, that no student should ever have to go to class wondering if they'll go home that day.
Penzone was joined by the police chief at GCU, who explained that for college students, mental health is connected with violence on campuses. According to the Center for Homeland Defense and Security, there were close to 250 shooting incidents at schools last year. Sheriff Penzone said this is something that is now becoming all too common.
It was once, taboo that our churches and our schools and other places didn't seem like an area that should ever be targeted by someone for violence, suddenly have become primary targets.
Also on the conference agenda, conversations about threat mitigation, analysis of school shootings, and what school safety means to students. Penzone mentioned the idea that teachers should defend their students at school, but push back and said school resource officers are better trained for those situations. The keynote address today was given by the father of one of the Parkland school shooting victims, who is now an advocate for safer schools.
The Arizona House passed a bill yesterday that would ban schools from requiring masks on their campuses. However, some local school districts have been lifting mask mandates on their own. Cronkite News reporter Molly McBride has the full update.
Multiple districts in the valley are removing mask mandates as COVID cases in Arizona decrease. Some local experts are on board with their decisions, but the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease says it may be too soon.
It is risky. It is risky. You may get away with it very well. It's possible you're going to get away with it, but you do have a risk when you pull back, if you have a certain dynamic of infection, that you'll have a rebound.
Despite Fauci's warning, William Humble, the executive director of the Arizona Public Health Association, says he's reserving his criticism for schools who never implemented mask mandates.
I have no problem with school districts deciding to drop their mask requirements after spring break because, look, they're recognizing that the data is showing the community spread is dropping.
In the Valley, Washington Elementary, Scottsdale Unified, and Kyrene School District have removed masking requirements. Tempe Unified High School District said in a statement that masks will be optional beginning February 22nd. And Madison Elementary says it's not a matter of if they will make masks optional, but when. Many Arizona school districts have left their mask mandates in place. As for the bill, it's now on its way to the Senate. In the newsroom, Molly McBride, Cronkite News.
The Thunderbird School of Global Management at Arizona State University announced today in a press conference that they received a $25 million donation to help give 100 million students around the world access to higher education. Cronkite News reporter Nick Shesky has more.
Francis Najafi immigrated to the United States from Iran around 50 years ago. He credits the Thunderbird School of Global Management for teaching him leadership and business skills that were crucial to his success. Now, he and his wife Diani are giving back to their alma mater with a $25 million donation. The money will be used to make higher education more globally accessible by translating 5 Thunderbird classes.
Translated to 40 different languages, comprising of 90% of the world population, and then further refine it to reflect local cultural attributes to make them even more understandable and make that quality education online accessible at no cost.
Najafi says that the idea of expanding education was one thing, but finding like-minded partners to execute it was another. That is where the Thunderbird School and Arizona State University became a perfect match for Najafi.
These two institutions, independently and certainly together, are magic. And this initiative is an incredible manifestation of the two of us working together.
Cogram says the process is going to be a long rollout that keeps on growing and expanding over time. But the first course in the initiative will be available April 8th. In Phoenix, Nick Shesky, Cronkite News.
The initiative will include courses like customer experience and digital marketing in a global world, available in languages like Thai, Japanese, and Arabic, to name a few.
Arizona Public Schools will potentially have another battle in sight soon. And it's not COVID-19, but rather the state legislature.
Public school districts in every county will face enormous and devastating budget cuts if you fail to defuse the ticking time bomb that will force them to close.
Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction Kathy Hoffman is referring to the March 1st deadline for the legislature to override the spending cap. She says schools cannot maintain operation without action from the legislature and calls inaction not an option. And although Hoffman is worried, State Representative John Kavanaugh has an optimistic look that legislators will override the cap.
It has to be done by March 1st. I'm pretty confident it will be done by March 1st.
But what if it's not? Many Arizonans are asking that question. We talked to Vice President Marisol Garcia at the Arizona Education Association about the what-ifs.
So the money just goes and gets put back into a savings account. It cannot be spent. And so what that means immediately is that educators could lose their jobs starting April 1st.
Advocates like the Arizona Education Association are concerned that sports, after-school activities, and theater could be drastically impacted by these budget cuts. Schools could lose 16% of funding across the board if impacted by the cuts.
This is not a distant impact, this is a direct impact. But I think even more importantly, it just adds the level of anxiety that is happening in schools as it is.
Lawmakers must override the cap by a 2/3 majority in the very few legislative days left until March 1st.
The Arizona Students Association hosted its 41st annual lobby event at the Capitol today. Mackenzie Allen Sharmley met with the college students who say they are hoping legislators listen to their concerns.
The students from public universities across the state came to the Capitol to lobby their lawmakers. And while they each had specific legislation they were for and against, they all wanted to have a voice in the conversation about their future. Students from all over Arizona gathered at the state capitol. Their goal, to advocate for affordable and accessible higher education in the state.
We're here telling the state legislature fund the university so that we can subsidize tuition, we can bring costs down, so that we get more students out to going to the university, so that, we can get more college educated students.
Every year, the Arizona Students Association chooses bills to advocate for, and this year, bills on social justice, voting rights, and appropriation were of the most student impact. HB 2161, a parental rights bill that would make it illegal for teachers to withhold information from parents regarding a student's gender identity, is one bill ASA considers endangering.
As a part of the LGBTQ community, that's a really important issue for me. I think protecting our students, protecting our LGBTQ students from attacks like this is super important.
Another bill of student concern, HB 2317, which allocates over $150 million to border security.
It's really frustrating, honestly, for them to think that border security is the main issue in border towns. Our argument is that that should be used for education purposes.
ASA says education funding is vital to student success. Overall, they just want to be a part of the conversation.
I would say it's very important that they know that we give them the power that they have, that they work for us. And this is kind of a reminder to remember who you do work for. You can't pass these laws that aren't to our benefit and almost make our lives impossible. So this is kind of like a little reminder, humble yourselves, we still exist.
One thing that gives these students confidence is that a number of the ASA alumni are now in positions of power, including being in the legislature. They note everyone was a student at one point in their life. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Allen Sharmley, Cronkite News.
Today, teachers gathered at the state capitol demanding action from legislators, and their voices may have been heard. Andrea Villalobos tells us why teachers are spending a day off of school fighting for their students.
Teachers across Arizona are concerned that their jobs are in danger and that their students may be left without critical resources if a spending cap on education funding isn't raised. The House voted to raise the limit last week, and today the Senate took up the matter. Signs like this were on display at the Capitol this President's Day as students, parents, and teachers showed up at the Capitol to have their voices heard. They say not extending the cap on education funding could have devastating effects on schools.
Thousands of educators will be either furloughed or they will be RIFed, which means reduction in force. They'll lose their job. Bus drivers could lose their jobs. Parents are going to probably have to go back to homeschooling because there won't be enough folks at the actual physical building to do instruction at the school sites.
I've seen in my classroom a lot of growth since the beginning of the year, and I just want to finish the year with my kids in the classroom so we can continue that growth.
Late this afternoon, the Senate passed the override of the spending cap by a vote of 23-6, with one senator not voting. The bill still needs to be signed by the governor. The bill passed with bipartisan support. The 6 noes were all Republicans. Even with this vote, educators say they won't give up the fight until the bill is signed by the governor. In the newsroom, Andrea Villalobos, Cronkite News.
Education in Arizona is affected by teacher shortages. A new report says hundreds of teaching positions are available and need to be filled. Cronkite News reporter Valeria Rodriguez explains what's causing the problem and what's being done to solve it.
As more teachers are needed, schools are getting creative in how they find good candidates, how they can help those be interested in teaching but don't have a state certification yet. As of January, there are more than 1,900 teacher vacancies, according to the Arizona School Personnel Administrators Association.
It's definitely made it harder on educators to have to, deal with a lesser workforce.
Diaz from the Arizona Autism Charter School says they have used innovative ways to find retainable teachers.
We have gotten very creative to get the teachers that we need for our students. We recruit from out of state and even out of the country. Some instances, we have sponsored teacher visas to get math and science teachers to our school.
Teachers and education officials say they see more teachers calling in sick because of COVID.
Teacher absences more than doubled. I think it was 220% increase compared to the January in the previous 2 years.
The ASPA also reported more than 1,600 teachers that severed employment as of January 2022, and over 70% separated employment and held a standard teacher certificate. Diaz and our team are prioritizing having committed and dedicated teachers in their classrooms.
We are engaging and applying for a teacher self-certification program where we can take teachers who have a great skill set and have a bachelor's degree, and we can certify them through our own training at our own school, because the training that we give them is very specific and very specialized. So it's really wonderful to address the teacher shortage by training our own teachers.
According to the report, over 3,000 teacher positions have already been filled by alternative methods. In the studio, Valeria Rodriguez, Cronkite News.
One of the Trump-era rules that the Biden administration did away with was the public charge rule, which let the U.S. turn away some immigrants who couldn't prove they could get by in this country without public assistance. But that was not the end of the rule, as Alexia Stanbridge reports from our Washington bureau.
Just because the Biden administration wants to drop the Trump-era public charge rule doesn't mean the states agree. And the Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich told the Supreme Court today that the states should be allowed to press the charge if the feds won't.
From the other side, even people from California state acknowledge that states generally should have the ability to intervene when the federal government won't do its job.
Brnovich said the government did not do its job last year when courts blocked the public charge rule. Instead of beginning the complex process of doing away with the policy, the Biden administration just let the court's ruling stand, effectively killing the public charge rule.
There literally was 4 Court of Appeals decisions that were floating around out there, and then the Biden administration took the unprecedented step of basically dismissing all those cases after the U.S. Supreme Court had granted certiorari in the cases.
But Justice Clarence Thomas asked why a new administration should not be allowed to adopt new policies.
The new administration often changes its position in cases. So what's different from this case in which the administration declines to appeal an adverse ruling?
Justices appeared skeptical of Brnovich's claims, pressing him repeatedly on whether there were better ways for the state to pursue its case. But Brnovich said he's cautiously optimistic.
They had a tough time justifying, explaining what they did, and quite frankly, it was a little sneaky, and I think the justices saw that.
The Supreme Court is expected to issue its ruling by this summer. In Washington, Alexia Stambridge, Cronkite News.
That states could face $1 billion in additional costs without the public charge rule in place. But a Justice Department attorney called that claim just wrong. In the year the rule was in effect, he said just 5 of the more than 50,000 immigrants who applied for a change in their immigration status could not meet the public charge rule.
The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation released national data in October that found 1 in 6 young people between the ages of 10 and 17 have obesity. I went to a local school garden that encourages children to learn about food and healthy habits from as early as 5th grade. Garfield's Garden on the Corner, a place growing healthy eating habits.
It's a way of instilling the habit young, rather than more modification and having to work on those habits later.
From planting a seed to washing the vegetables, students at Garfield Elementary School are exposed to how food grows, how to cook with it, and ultimately get to eat it.
Then they actually get to see it in the school cafeteria on the menu, which is really exciting. And it also promotes just local food, healthy soil, and that just creates more nourishment for the students.
Paige Mullen is president of the Mullen Foundation, which started in 2008 because they saw childhood obesity turning into a public health crisis.
At the same time, schools were eliminating funding for physical education, and so there was an elimination of PE and recess. And so initially we started by getting kids moving, and then we integrated some nutrition education.
Jamie Bissell with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation says, like so many things, COVID-19 has impacted childhood obesity.
In many ways, the childhood obesity epidemic and the COVID-19 pandemic have exacerbated one another, and that childhood obesity really is a symptom of all the larger challenges that families face in their communities, and it's a sign that our policies are failing our kids.
Bissell says compared to the national data, Arizona statistics on childhood obesity are significantly lower. Nationally, more than 16% of children are considered obese, but Arizona's rate is just over 10%. That's 6% lower than the national average. Bussell says Arizona is doing something right.
Arizona should certainly celebrate. Arizona is 50 out of 51 in terms of, doing the best.
Bissell says there's still a lot that can be done in both policy and practice, but she says it is a good idea to start healthy behaviors young.
I think we need to be thinking bigger and bolder about lasting solutions to ensure that every child in America has a fair and just shot at growing up as healthy as possible.
And for the young kids at Garfield Elementary School, Mullen says they are excited, work together, and apply what they learn.
When you see them sharing that with somebody else and kind of mentoring somebody else, that is, it's really beautiful to see that.
Not enough activity and too many calories from food and drinks are said to be the main causes of childhood obesity. Limiting screen time to 2 hours per day and replacing soda with water are just 2 examples of healthy habits.
Many school districts here in Arizona and across the country are beginning to alter their COVID-19 related safety protocols. Cronkite News reporter Joey Vaca talked to schools about making those changes across the country. He joins us from our Los Angeles bureau.
At the start of the pandemic, California was the first state to implement stay-at-home orders in response to COVID-19. Well, the state's recently lifted its school mask mandate, a contentious move that has some schools going their own way. For the first time since March 2020, public school students in many parts of the state can go to school without masks. Some districts are choosing to keep masks for now, but one LA suburban district is making the change.
From the very beginning, our agreement was to take whatever the public health orders are and do exactly what they require. Don't do less than what's required and don't do more than what's required.
Unlike nearby Los Angeles Unified, where students are still required to mask indoors, Simi Valley is part of the 68% of districts nationwide that have stopped requiring masks, according to tracking site Burbio. State politicians had tried to ban school mask mandates across Arizona, but a state judge deemed the ban unconstitutional back in fall of 2021. While policies differ across state lines, schools everywhere are putting students first.
We took those challenges and we turned them into positives. And so we looked at how can we still support students.
While some will be excited to finally come back to school without wearing a mask, state public health officials still strongly recommended wearing them. The school district echoed this sentiment, but said it will respect all personal choices of both students and staff. Educators like Principal Sean Rumble also learned the opportunity to make an impact doesn't end with instruction.
And teaching is not just about math, science, social studies and English. It's about everything. And so we're trying to help our kids adjust and help them understand, like, these are lessons that you're going to take with you for the rest of your life.
Now, during the pandemic, the Simi Valley Unified School District has worked to provide increased counseling to aid students' mental health, even down to the elementary level. In Los Angeles, Joey Vaca, Cronkite News.
About 700,000 adults in Arizona do not have their high school diploma, but a new center opening up in Arizona will give adults the opportunity to finish, or for some, start their high school education. As Faith Abercrombie tells us, these centers are placed in areas where they're needed the most.
Without this program, a lot of people wouldn't make it.
A high school for adults.
It's not just a high school. It's a place where everybody will know your name.
But also a place for new beginnings.
But you're also going to have a job coach and a life coach. You're going to have a child care center right down the hall from your class so that your kiddos are safe.
The Goodwill Excel Center is a tuition-free public high school that will be a resource for the 14% of adults in Arizona without a diploma.
And we're going to be opening more of these types of facilities so we can service the need that's necessary in Arizona.
The first Excel Center is located in central Phoenix, where 5 miles in every direction, less than half of the adults haven't completed high school. The hope is to create schools in other areas where the need for adult high school education is high.
The state could easily have 25 to 30 Excel centers, and they're going to range in size from 300 students at a time, 350 like this campus, even to small campuses that only have 50 to 100 students. But we're coming for you.
Classes will begin at this first center in August. In Phoenix, Faith Abercrombie, Cronkite News.
The center was funded in part with $12 million from the state. Excel centers in 5 other states have had success, with 97% of students graduating.
Passport is adding new shows and doubling the number of episodes for you to stream. For the first time ever, our most popular programs have been selected just for you.
But there's so much more.
Whether you like to travel,
wow,
feast,
and calories don't count.
Look back.
That is me.
Discover.
And you know the whole story.
There's something for everyone.
Let's get to it right away.
Stream on any device with Passport on the PBS Video app. Your favorite member benefit is getting better and bigger.
This is wonderful.
Over the next year, Passport is adding new shows and doubling the number of episodes for you to stream.
They give us all that they've got.
From your favorite cooking and travel series.
Even the stairs are breathtaking.
To history specials and award-winning documentaries. Better and bigger.
That really is the fun part.
Stream on any device with Passport on the PBS Video app.
I was so excited when I learned that I was going to be the next moderator of Washington Week. I was incredibly lucky to be mentored by Gwen Eiffel, and what that gave to me was this confidence that I could be my full self and that I was deserving of whatever spaces I was in.
Welcome to Washington Week.
I also feel this great joy in taking the helm of Washington Week, knowing that I can mold it and make it my own, but also make sure that it is still within the legacy and the tradition that made it so great for all of these years.
Women make up 10% of the construction workforce. Sharp Construction and Girl Scouts partnered up in an effort to pave the way for the future of the industry. I spoke with one Girl Scout eager to get her hands on some tools in the new project. Girls Can Build is an initiative to educate young women interested in construction.
I'm very excited because this program specifically is going to give more girls opportunities to pursue things in architecture and building.
Savannah Ellis has been a Girl Scout for 6 years, and her interest in this industry came from her love of math and building.
I've built a swing set with my grandpa. I build a lot of stuff just out of scrap materials like cardboard.
Savannah, like many other Girl Scouts, is excited to learn more about the industry, and that is the goal of Tiffany Sharp of Sharp Construction.
It's too often that I see high school students that are graduating, and these young girls are going to college with the idea that they're expected to select their career for the rest of their life, but they don't really always know what career opportunities are really there for them.
Girls Can Build announced its first project with the Girl Scouts Arizona Cactus Pine Council.
With our partnership with Girl Scouts, we are fundraising to build a mobile workshop.
This unit will drive around to different campsites and include tools and other hands-on opportunities.
The opportunity to touch the tools, learn about life skills such as fixing a toilet or any of those items where these are skills that even if they don't go into the trades would definitely be helpful as they manage their future apartments or houses or just in life.
Women make up almost 52% of the workforce across the country, according to Sharp. But that number is not seen in construction.
I feel like there's a massive gap in the amount of women that are getting up every single day, leaving their families and going to work, but not coming into our industry.
Sharp hopes that if a young girl has a passion for building like she did, they won't let anything get in their way.
If your dream is to design or build, then be it. Be bold to build.
They hope to have the mobile unit built and open for use in the fall, and they are raising money to make it happen.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.